Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the FFS tea break. So I'm not going to go into the format by now. I think we've done 3 of these already. Most of you have been along, so you know what to expect from us. It's 15 minutes of good conversation, and that is absolutely what we are going to get today. I am joined.
All rants.
It all counts. I'm joined by the excellent Danny Wareham today. Danny is an organisational psychologist who specialises in leadership, culture and personality. He's an accredited coach, he's a psychometrician, and he is a published author, and he is a downright ruddy, marvellous human who always has something excellent to say. So I am very much looking forward to this conversation. So without further ado, because I know we've both chatted about the concern of keeping to 15 minutes, I am going to hand over to you, Danny, and let you share your FFS moment for the day.
It's the problem and the benefit of when we're very verbose and chatty, and we just like to put the world to rights. But my morning, afternoon, how are you doing? Is it only Monday?
I know. Tell me about it, eh?
So my FFS is labels, but there are a couple of specific examples. Because I'm a psychologist, we have this fascination with labels, and it's more of the popular psychology labels that we see in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, things like, I'm a bit OCD because I turn the lights off before I go to bed and check all the doors. No, you're just a person. Similarly, self-diagnosis of things like ADHD, autism, which are medical labels, but we use them to help make sense of our world, but they can also be they can also get in our way because we've become a little obsessed with the label. I have a lot more to rant on it, but that's the broad one. It's the labels. Do they add any value, or do they just get in our way of our thinking?
Nice. Well, I'm going to do that really annoying host thing of throwing that question back at you then. Do they add any value?
So I'm not completely sure they do, just in a general conversation sense. So for a bit of background, in the psychology world, we use a thing called the medical model, and it is a categorization tool. So you're either normal or you have a deficit. So normal or abnormal, that's it. There's no nuance between it. And this can be useful when there are extreme conditions. So things like maybe schizophrenia or narcissistic personality disorder. If you're above a certain level in these facets, then you get this categorization, and that opens up funding and access to medical attention and so on. And the document that decides whether you are normal or abnormal is something called the DSM. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that psychologists use. And we're on version 5 at the moment. And my argument, without getting too ranty, is that it's not a medical document. It's a societal document. So it determines what does society think is kind of normal or abnormal, so that we can apply these labels. And as an example, we're on version 5 now. Version 3 had homosexuality as a mental disorder. And then society moves on, and we realize there's absolutely nothing wrong with LGBTQ, and it is removed from that labeling tool. I believe that things like, so we all see the world differently. We are all neurodiverse. At the moment, if your neurodiversity is outside of kind of societal norms, then it is labeled as ADHD, autism, etc. My view is that when the DSM-6 comes out, it is likely that those labels will be dropped because there is nothing inherently a deficit or abnormal about seeing the world and processing the world differently.
Yeah.
So that's my rant. It's the labeling of this label doesn't add any value. It might access some funding or mean that you have extra time on your exams if you have dyslexia, for example, but it doesn't really add any value. It just kind of others people, which I'm not a fan of.
No. And I think
too ranty.
No, I don't. I thought that was very controlled and very balanced. And you'll be, I'm sure you won't be surprised to know that we've got Paula in the comments wholeheartedly agreeing and saying, yeah, using the label to understand and leverage strengths, deficit thinking can be such a trap. And even diagnosis is focusing on dysfunction and through a really judgmental lens.
Yeah. And that judgmental lens changes every time we have a new edition of the DSM. So it's not an objective measure of do these traits help or hinder you? Do these traits help or hinder society? And that just feels a bit, it's not very inclusive, is it?
No, and if you think about reflecting and applying that in a workplace environment, in a team environment, if you're managing a team and you're looking at the individuals, you know your individuals inherently from the things that they are going to excel at, and the things that you will perhaps be more likely to push in their direction, and the things that there's someone else in the team that they excel with. And is that too simplistic to be thinking about it in those terms, or is it just?
So we know the answer. It depends. There's lots of tools out there to help us try to understand different people's thinking patterns, their cognition, their personalities, etc. The best way to understand someone is to ask them. It's that simple. And there's a lot of myths around some of these labels. In personality terms, if you're high in a dimension called openness to experience and low in conscientiousness, then the traits that you may tend to see in people's behaviors will be that they might be easily distracted and go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, but they're also really curious and quick to learn, but they're also unstructured and leave things to the last moment. Now, if you have that to a very high degree, then you might be in that sort of ADHD camp. But I'm in that camp, and actually those, if you have self-awareness, when you're finding yourself going down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, and actually talking to me and saying, when are you at your best, and what do you need more energy to do, and how do we help you have structure, or even use tools to give you more structure, is much more useful than go and take this test and get this label. So when it comes to understanding your team, your partner, anybody else, just talk to each other. When are you at your best? And also don't forget that we're not completely ourselves at work. The social norms of the groups that we're in flex how we behave and how we show up as well. So if you're just judging what you think this person is like based on what they're exhibiting, then you're trying to interpret their dancing without knowing what music's playing.
Oh, I like that, Danny.
We all love a metaphor, don't we?
We do. That is a lovely way to put it. We've got Anna very, very enthusiastically bold and lots of exclamation marks saying stop the labels. So how would you recommend, like, if we've got managers or leaders watching this now or watching it back thinking, what can we do to shake up or break the use of labels in our business?
My advice for everything is start with yourself. I joke regularly that there is a reason that every leadership book ever published has a section on self-awareness. We all think we're self-aware, but actually the more experienced and the more capable we become, the more competent and specialized we become as we move up an org, actually the less self-awareness is actually prevalent. So we kind of get in our own way. So start with yourself. When are you at your best? Because the things that you do make complete rational sense to you. For example, when I'm stressed, one of my sort of coping mechanisms is I will try to find any idea to fix a problem. And often those ideas can be completely unrealistic and fantastic. So for example, I've used this before, my engine light came on my car about 4 months ago. And the very first thought that goes through my head is, let's get a new car. And I can rationalize that way because the car's 4 years old and I could get an EV and it's tax deductible and put it on the business. But to everybody else around me, Danny, you're an idiot. Just pay to get it diagnosed and see what the problem is. It might be the stereo that's not working. So we rationalize away our own behaviors. Another example is if you're driving and somebody cuts you up and you beep the horn at them, they never get out of the car and say, you know what, you were right. And in our businesses, we do the same thing. There are some people that find their own psychological safety. And if I just had the data, if I just had the information, I could plan my way out of this.
Yeah.
There are others that just become passengers. I'm not dealing with that. There's worse things in the world going on. I'm going to go and acquiesce and do something else. Those behaviors make sense to those people. But to us watching, they seem irrational. So if you understand yourself and where do you go and what's your stresses, that helps give you at least a starting point to start to understand other people and why does that behavior frustrate us or annoy us. And we can move from that kind of frustration to fascination.
What do you've probably already touched on.
It was just a lot of word vomit, was it? It was just like, yeah.
No,
Start with yourself.
I'm trying to contain my brain because there's so many questions and thoughts that are coming to me just about it's. I think this is a beautiful continuation of the conversation that Paula and Leanne had last week.
Yeah.
Because there's just, it's the damage to individuals, groups, teams, just collective broad brush that holding those labels. And like, I'm just thinking about Paula's comment there about talking about the ADHD assessment, and you have to agree that you are careless and you are making silly mistakes, and just owning that, expecting individuals to own those labels. It's just so broadly problematic.
And you lose the intersectionality and nuance between labels. So you start to get this sort of outgroup homogeneity bias where you think that people that are not like you are all the same. So all ADHD people are the same, or all gay men are the same, or all. So it becomes very easy to go, the French just eat garlic, because they're not part of our in-group. Whereas our in-group are all complex and diverse and have lots of nuance. So labels can get in the way of us understanding the overlaps between the thousands and thousands of labels that we all have. Yeah. And really, that's where life's lived. It's not in those individual boxes of, as Leanne would say last week, I'm a red, or I'm an ENTJ, or, forget about the science and the validity behind it, which we know is BS. And had Leanne not been on, I probably would have talked about those too. But if the label says, if DISC says I'm a red, that almost gives a permission to be blunt and a bit of an arsehole because I'm a red and the label makes it okay. And if I have ADHD, well, ADHD is, we think of as, we're unable to focus and scatterbrained. That's not what ADHD is. Yes, there may be times where we might find ourselves context switching between stuff, but actually people with ADHD can have hyper focus on something. It's just finding that thing that actually piques their interest, which as somebody that's not ADHD, I don't have a medical diagnosis, is exactly me. It's also exactly what my partner is, and exactly that every single person I've ever met in my life is. Do we all have that label? Or maybe the label's not quite worth their salt.
Yeah. Yes. If Danny ruled the world, what would you change it to be? What would you like to see?
So I think that's a really big question, and it would make me sound a bit Trump-esque if it was like Danny's fiefdom. I think when it comes to businesses and teams, or even you group down the allotment, but any social group, why does your group exist? What are you there for? If you have that as that sort of cliched North Star, then the next questions become less about what's your role and what's your job description, what can you operate within these guide rails. Instead, it becomes what can you contribute towards that? Yeah. And it might be things I've never even thought of because I don't know you inside and out. Yeah. I only know I only know your A's and B's, not your A, B, C, D's and E's. So I know your actions and your behaviors because that's what I can see. But I don't know your cognition. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know your desires. I don't know your motivations and what gets you out of bed in the morning. And I don't know your E's, your emotions and what you're going through at the moment. So I've got a completely incomplete picture that's looked at through my own biases to try and understand how can you contribute to this thing that I think we need. A much better way is what are we here for? What can you contribute? And that's what I would change about organizations, church groups, friend groups, allotments, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What are we here for? Are we here for a good night out? Right. Well, what can you contribute towards it?
Nice. I'm not going to answer that because I'll probably divulge far too much about myself. Right. I want to share this question with you that's come up in the chat, Danny, conscious of time, but I think we always knew we were going to run over. So hey,
yeah, only slightly.
Yeah. So Matt has asked, I think around labeling, is it that it's our minds trying to simplify the world because we can't process all the inputs, so we look for grouping?
So the too long didn't read answer.
Yeah.
we are wired for laziness. We're designed on the savannah 160,000 years ago, where it's hand to mouth. We didn't know where our next calories are coming from, and biases are just a way of operating efficiently. So we use fewer calories. So we're encouraged to have these shortcuts, these mental shortcuts, heuristics we call them, and some of that is through things like stereotyping or but yeah, the short answer is yes. We like boxes. We like simple answers, and you see that in the world today. How well we latch onto simple language. Lots of triplets of ban the boats, build back better, build the wall. We like those things at a kind of guttural base level because they don't take much effort to think about. Effort in terms of energy and calories. So yes, Matt, absolutely, we are lazy.
And I imagine that's probably worse now. Like if you, like you say, when you think about built on the savannah and the competing cognitive demands you would have had then that you were thinking about and processing versus what an average day as a human looks like now.
Yeah,
that's only going to be driving the overwhelm and this desire for simplicity and ease of right, I can neatly box everybody and everything.
We don't, there's no redundancy in the brain. We don't have a part of the brain that deals with the threat of an email that we've misinterpreted. We don't have that. We have, it's a mortal threat or I'm safe. That's it. There's no nuance because we didn't need that. We didn't need, when the tiger came, we didn't need to remember all its details. We just needed to get out of dodge. So cortisol, one of the things it does other than priming your muscles is it cuts your short-term memory. So if you have organizations where you're constantly in a threat state, constantly in a stress state, then you're going to have lots of reactionary behaviors that feel rational to the person. And it's going to damage your ability to learn from those things because your cognition's affected, your memory is affected. So yeah, how do you remove threat? And some of that is not othering people. We're wired for conformity, belonging, and safety. And labels remove that, or the focus on the labels removes that.
Danny, that feels like a beautiful place to draw our discussion to a close. I mean, it doesn't. I want to carry on talking.
That's a very Libra thing to say,
But I'm conscious that we promised people 15 minutes and we've given them a little bit more, but I think we should see it as bonus content. So thank you ever so much, everybody, for joining us today and for joining in with your comments and thoughts. And you will be joined by Paula and another guest next week.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kara.
Cheers, Danny.